Hey everyone, my name is Evan Freiberger, and today we're going to be talking about a kind of a big deal storm that's about to come into the United States. We're going to have a couple storms, one that could bring a major snowstorm, and then on the backside of it can bring a huge amount of cold into the country. We're going to be talking about the chances of this actually happening, and then also whether or not it's going to be the coldest in years. But I do think a lot of folks actually might get the coldest temperatures they have felt in years. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Let's zoom out here for a little bit. I do want to talk about this potential pattern that we're going to be in as we go into the future. So as I move this forward, I do want you to pay attention to a couple of things here. One, the fact that we're going to be getting a high pressure system, a blocking ridge, eventually try to form up here towards Greenland. Now that working with another ridge over here in the western portion, they're going to be kind of working together here. Now, if you can imagine how this works, the air around this high pressure system is going to be circulating around it in this direction, and then the air around this one is also going to be circulating around it in this direction as well. And these two things are going to work together to kind of slingshot some of that Arctic air down into the United States. And as you can see, we are seeing a lot of little low pressure systems that could potentially come in and bring even more Arctic air down into the United States. So it's going to be kind of all working in concert here to bring very cold air down into the United States. And not only that, with those low pressure systems, we're also going to be getting those chances for some moisture and also some snow on the northern sides of those low pressure systems. You can see we have this one that really sticks out here. This one very interesting storm really digging down into the southeast and then eventually lifting up into the northeast, potentially bringing a major winter storm up into the Great Lakes. But as you can see, we're looking at this about a week out. So this is no means a guaranteed storm event, guaranteed major snowstorm, but the cold does have a lot of confidence behind it. But first off, we're going to start off with the future radar here to see what is possible across the United States. As you can see, we already have a couple of low pressure systems lining up here. We got one over here that just brought a little bit of snow up into the Michigan area. We're going to see these little low pressure systems kind of move across the country, bringing some shots of snow. You can see that we could get some snow all the way up there in South Dakota, Nebraska, going into Iowa and Missouri, for eventually most of that transitions into rain and then tries to transition back into snow, potentially bringing a shot of snow for northern Indiana and also Ohio as early as the 31st here at around 6 p.m. That eventually is going to try to push off to the east, bringing some more snow up to the northeast. And then eventually that's going to move out of our hair. We could have a couple of weak low pressure systems move in behind that and some of the colder air that gets ejected into the United States. But this is not the kind of cold air that we're going to be talking about that could set up for bigger snowstorms and then also the potential for maybe even some southern snow as well. So let's continue to push this forward. You can see as we move into the 5th, check this out. This is going to be our snowstorm here and potentially a very impactful snowstorm depending on where this line sets up, this freezing line sets up. Also, we're going to be watching out the potential for a severe weather outbreak as well with this storm. Again, this is a little bit far out. A lot of details can change, but a lot of the things are coming into place. If we come over here to our dew points, you can see they're a little bit suppressed to the south. As I push this forward, they really start to eject up to the north. Looking at our lower level winds, there's a lot there. A lot. Upper level winds, not as much, but a decent amount. We could definitely get some severe weather and maybe even a tornado risk if everything could line up a little bit better than this. If we get a little bit more of a push up to the north with that moisture, we could be talking about another potentially dangerous severe weather event. Not only that, as I change this back over to our future precipitation type here, you can see that we've got a lot of snow happening on the northern side of this. Now, I'm not getting overly excited about this storm just yet. Again, a lot of things are going to shift over the next 6 to 7 days. This is within the week range, so we could see this storm actually happen here. And that could bring a lot of snow up here into the Ohio Valley. Let's continue to push this forward and check out the timing here. So yeah, start on the 5th, go throughout the 6th, still bringing heavy snow as we go into the morning hours of the 6th here up into the Ohio Valley, also pushing up into the northeast. And then eventually that pushes off up into New England and the northeast as well, Pennsylvania, potentially getting some snow. And then look at this, all the way down, back down to the south. Could potentially see some lighter snow all the way down into Tennessee, maybe even northern Alabama and Georgia. Now, switching this over to the snowfall, not so that we can get an exact understanding of how many inches of snow is going to happen with this storm. We're just not going to know those details for another 2 or 3 days. But I do want to switch this over just so you guys can get an understanding of where that snow falls and where potentially we could get some heavier amounts of snow. So just understand that this is going to shift around. These always shift around. These numbers within the band are going to change a little bit as we get closer. But this is kind of the area where we're thinking a snowstorm could go. If this goes, that low pressure system digs a little bit further to the south, we could see that snow band extend a little bit more to the south as well. If it, for some reason, is a little bit warmer and goes a little bit further to the north, we might not see as much snow there for Ohio. It could be a little bit further up to the north, more for Michigan. But it does seem like, if you live kind of smack dab in the middle of this snow line, you have a decent chance of seeing something just given how widespread this indication of snow is. But again, don't get overly excited just yet. This storm does look promising. One of the big things you've probably been hearing for a while is that extremely cold weather that could be coming into the United States. I do want to show you there is some model support here. So here we have the GFS on the left and the Euro on the right. And as I push this forward, you can see that these are two different models. They're going to have two different solutions here. And the GFS and the Euro, by the time we get into around the 31st, around 6 p.m., look at all this cold air starting to creep up into Canada. Now, we're not going to get any storms to really tap into that and bring it down, but those are those high pressure systems kind of taking that Arctic air down into the United States, the northern United States, like Canada. And then eventually, when that bigger low pressure system that we were talking about for the 5th and 6th comes through, it's going to grab that colder air and then it's going to try to sling that down into the United States. Look at this. As we go into the 6th, you can see that we are starting to see potentially, this is the wind chill here, negative 20 to negative 30 degree temperatures here on the GFS. But then look over here in the Euro, not nearly as cold as the GFS and a little bit further north with the coldest temperatures, even with the wind chill factored in. And then as we push this all the way through into the 7th here, now the Euro is colder than the GFS. I mean, we have almost single digit wind chills all the way down here in the northern southeast. And then also not as cold, but still pretty darn cold over here in the northern southeast on the GFS. But look at this, negative 30 degree temperatures are going to be possible as this pushes down with the wind chill. But we are really far out here. A lot of things can change. My gut is telling me that it's going to be a little bit warmer than what these models are depicting. We've had a little bit of a cold bias this year, but even then, I mean, still, if you get negative 30 and potentially even negative 40 degree temperatures coming up into the northern United States, it's going to cause a lot of problems. And it's actually dangerous if you get caught outside for way too long. But yeah, this would actually be, if we could get this first little shot to come in, this would actually be a proper Arctic blast. This is around the temperatures that we're going to be seeing in the Arctic Ocean, and those are going to try to make it pretty far deep into the United States. So this could definitely be an Arctic blast for a lot of folks out there. So not time to prepare just yet. Details are still a little iffy on where this cold is going to set up, but it's certainly something you guys need to be watching out for as we go into the future. Now, in terms of the winds over the next couple of days, we do have some pretty high winds possible down here in the Colorado Rockies, extending all the way into New Mexico. You see, we got a lot of high wind warnings out there. That is going to be because we have just that jet stream is still kind of moving over this area, and that's eventually going to push down in the south and east, bringing some pretty heavy winds, potentially 40 to 50 mile per hour winds starting today, going into potentially even tomorrow. We can see these winds stick around, and it looks like they're going to start 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts over here, and eventually push down to the south and east into parts of Nebraska, Kansas, going into Oklahoma, maybe even a streak there, 40 to 50 mile per hour winds possible going into eastern Texas from Santa Fe as well. And then eventually that little southern region kind of dies off, but we still have some pretty gusty winds, 30 to 40, maybe even some isolated wind gusts of 50 miles per hour, all the way still from Oklahoma City going up into southern Dakota there. And then eventually that's going to kind of push off to the east, bringing some stronger winds back into the Tennessee Valley here, with potentially 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts possible over there near Nashville, 30 to 40 here in northern Alabama. A little low pressure system there is kind of what is causing this. And then eventually that's going to push off to the east. Not going to be as windy as it moves up to East Coast, but I mean, there's going to be a couple spots here where we do have that chance for some 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts here near Boston, New England, and then also up here in the Appalachian Mountains. Eventually that's going to push off and get out of our hair. And then after that, still going to to have some windy conditions over here near Pennsylvania and New York. In terms of total precipitation over the next 5 days, most of the United States is going to be relatively dry in comparison to the pattern that we just had. As you can see, we can still see some rain pile up over here into the West Coast, but almost every single state in the United States is barely getting over a little bit of a dusting of rain, and that's about it. Maybe some light snow up here from that little clipper system, maybe some light snow up here, but none of that is really rain or precipitation. Yeah, quite the change from last week where we had a widespread area of 4 to 5, 6, 7 inches of rain. Lots of little flooding reports out there as well, especially over there in Memphis, Tennessee. Also, big change over here in the West Coast. A lot less rain over there. Over here in the Southwest, going up into the Central Plains and the Northern Plains, you can definitely tell kind of the same there. We've been seeing it dry over here for a while, and unfortunately, that's going to continue. The drought conditions will probably continue to get worse in the Southwest. But all right, everybody, that's going to be it for me. I do appreciate you guys tuning in for another forecast. Little update. I am getting a little bit better, but as you can tell, my voice is still struggling a little bit. I'm thinking just the overall progression. The models are saying that my voice should be back to 100% by tomorrow. We'll see if they end up being correct. But thank you guys for watching and trusting me with your weather. If you did enjoy this video, hit that like and subscribe button. It does help us out a lot. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening. Peace.